You are watching or listening to Purham and Associates. For more information, go to rpurham.com or follow me on all social media platforms and subscribe at RPURHAM. Thanks. See you over there. Hey, good day to you all. Welcome to Permanent Associates. I'm your host, Randy Purham. Damn, quicker than when it click. Hey, we got a very special guest with us today. I wanted to get right to he's been here before. Y'all know who he is. But nonetheless, for those that don't know who he is, we have none other than Jeff Dornik, and he is the founder and CEO of PickAx. And he is also the host of the Jeff Dornik Show, where he's interviewed prominent voices like Senator Ron Johnson, Dr. Pierre Corey, Cash Patel, General Michael Flynn, Lauren Burbert, Jason Miller, and many more. He's also co-hosting a bold new weekly show with Matt Couch called Unsanctioned. And author and editor Jeff published and co-authored Church and State, How the Left Used the Church to Conquer America and Social Injustice, exposing the false gospel of the social justice movement. His forthcoming book, Following the Leader, is currently available for pre-order. Jeff is a frequent speaker at national events including the Reawaken American Tour at Trump Doral, the Summit for the Truth and Wellness, and Stand Against Marxism Conference, and the #Walkaway American Restoration Tour in Beverly Hills, where he served as MC. Ladies and gentlemen, introduce some and present the others, Mr. Jeff Dornik. Good morning, sir. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. How you doing?
Doing pretty good. How you doing?
Living a legend. Hey, welcome back. Tell us what have you been up to the last couple months since you've been on last?
Yeah, we just been with PickAx. We've just been we're full on in our beta testing, onboarding more people into our beta app for PickAx, and it's been a lot of fun to kind of see everything come to fruition and more people buy into our vision and our concept of where we're trying to go. So that legitimately, basically, my entire life is just building out this platform and chasing around a 3-year-old. So those two things will keep me busy.
3-year-old, oh, terrible threes. I actually call it's terrible twos. I call them terrorist threes because they're
they call it, so it's like terrible twos, and then you have a 3-nager. I think is the next phase.
Yeah, okay. 3-nager. That's still terrorism in my book. But I want to get into talking about California, since you're there and you're eyes on, hands on, boots on ground, dealing with Gavin Newsom, Governor Gavin Newsom. I air quote that. Somebody else is running the show apparently, because I just can't see him doing all this craziness. But there's a series of bills that that was signed into law in California, and two of them particularly stood out to me as there's a bunch of them, of course, but two of them particularly stood out to me, and I'm just like, okay. Because California, to my recollection, and correct me if I'm wrong, but according to history books, because I wasn't there, according to history books, California never had slaves. Right? Am I correct?
From what I understand, like California was not a slave state.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And so this bill, I got it right here in front of me. Uh, Senate Bill 518. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm laughing at this stuff because of the absurdity of it all, and it's just hilarious to me that the people in California voted these people into office, and these people in turn create these policies, and is now going to be law to your expense, ladies and gentlemen. Just keep that in mind. To your expense, not mine, yours. Senate Bill 518. Go look it up. It says it establishes the Bureau of Descendants of American Slavery within the California Department of Justice. Now, that's an odd place to put a place like that in the Department of Justice, but okay. The new agency will be responsible for verifying eligibility, processing claims, and recommending forms of restitution for descendants of enslaved African Americans. The law also gives Californians whose families were dispossessed of property through racially motivated eminent domain and right to seek compensation under the Government Claims Act. Lawmakers describe the measure as a key step in California's broader effort to address historical racial injustices and lay the groundwork for future reparations policies. Jeff, I'm gonna move to California. Sorry. Because I think that's what's going to happen. There's going to be I guess you could say, a demographical shift in the United States if this goes into law and they implement it and people start to see how it's working and all that. People are going to move, especially African Americans. And I say African Americans, ladies and gentlemen, there is a distinction here. We have African descendants of slaves called ADOS, or you might hear the term foundational blacks, meaning that their ancestry was rooted here in the United States during the time of slavery. You're going to find this particular set of African Americans moving to California because that would be the only state in the nation that is giving out reparations to black people. So, Jeff, I want to get your thoughts on that, sir.
Yeah, well, it's interesting dealing with this because I think we have to take a step back. We have to look at the broader picture of Gavin Newsom specifically, because as you said, he's governor right now, but he's being termed out as governor of California, so he can't run for re-election. And on a side note, the front runner out here in California is absolutely insane. And I've already told my wife if Katie Porter wins this next election, then we're probably leaving the state because I don't feel safe with my 3-year-old living in the state of California with Katie Porter as governor. But with Gavin Newsom, okay, sounds good. I've got a lot of friends in Texas, so Texas might be a front runner. But it's interesting because Gavin Newsom, obviously he's being termed out. And if you've noticed, since Trump got elected, he's been trying to position himself as being the Democrat nominee for president. He's going on this he's gone on this nationwide tour, speaking all over the country, dealing more with national events as opposed to California stuff. But what's interesting is he's specifically trying to, from a forward-facing position, trying to portray himself as a moderate, as the sane alternative to the far-right extreme MAGA Donald Trump. But then if you look at his policies are catering to the far-left fringe of, the loudest minority in the Democrat Party. And so he's kind of playing both sides of the fence. And so, forward facing, it's, I'm the sane, whatever, person. I want to talk to all sides. I want to do all this kind of stuff. And then he implements policies like this, where, like you said, California would be the first state in the country to implement, reparations. I don't even know how. And again, this is just from like a logistical standpoint. I don't know how you verify, whether somebody is a descendant of a slave. I mean, it's kind of on the honor system because it's not like there's like records. It's not like you can go back and you can see, well, here's a certificate stating that your family is, fill in the blank. I don't know how logistically you do it outside of like the honor system. I don't know. Maybe you've got some other kind of insight. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, kinda. And I see your point. You actually make a great point there. There would be it would have to be kind of like an honor system because the first claim that a person would make, because I would make this claim. I already know how they think. it would be along the lines of, well, during slavery, y'all didn't keep records on who we were as people when y'all took us from our homeland. So Of course not. I can't prove, that I was a descendant of a slave. So that would be that argument. But however, through DNA, genetic testing, Ancestry.com, for example, because I traced a lot of my lineage through Ancestry.com. And, it gets skeptical, once it gets into the 1700s. It's kind of like, okay, maybe. maybe some, elite white people that really cared about this stuff kept records of all of that, and it populated there, and so that's how I'm able to link into it, perhaps. But but there is that mechanism. Now, how many people are running around doing that? It's not that many. So I think there's going to be barriers. I think California will have enough common sense to put up some barriers and protect them. They're the treasury there to say, okay, stop. If you can't definitively prove, that you were affected by this, then get the hell out of here. But what my whole thing is, it's California. There was no slaves in California, so you're saying descendants of slavery in California? That's literally no one. So it's kind of like do you have to have a residency requirement? Like, what are we doing here? So that's where I'm kind of like that's where I'm at on that. It's like how to your point, how are you logistically going to handle this? Now maybe we got to get into the weeds of the bill, and go through all of that. Maybe it lays it all out. Maybe it's going to be discretionary. Who knows? But to me, it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I think also, like, on that standpoint, it's like you said, like, California, it wasn't a slave state. It would make more sense. And again, I don't necessarily think it's the right approach, but like, it would make more sense if it was like, one of the southern states, and they're like, we never dealt with the Jim Crow laws that we had in effect. We never dealt with the fact that, we know for a fact that this piece of land was taken from this family at this time. Like, there's certain things where it's like, yes, there should, and you could make a legitimate argument that if the government came in and they implemented some kind of law, or they confiscated land illegally or whatever it is, and then there's a family, and you can say, well, look, this land was owned by this family, and you have all these generations that were affected by the fact that we took this property, or we did this as a governmental entity. You could make an argument like, okay, we can go back, we can pinpoint that, let's make reparations for that. But I think when you're looking at a state like California, who had nothing to do with slavery, again, as far as I know, based on California history, that didn't have it's a very weird position to take, unless you're just trying to get votes, you're trying to get, and the other thing to think about as well, Donald Trump and the Republican Party has been gaining on the African American vote, every single election cycle. It seems like, when you look at the poll numbers. So this could be a play by Gavin Newsom to try to bring some of that back into the fold of the Democrat Party, where they've taken for granted the African American vote, going back, decades. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh crap, the Republicans seem to be gaining some ground over here.
Yeah. And to that point, there is that sentiment, talking to there's a here in Austin particularly, there is a migratory movement taking place of African Americans and even Latinos, Hispanics, coming over to the Republican Party. And so, of course, it's a shocker to the traditional Democrats that think that they own that voting bloc. They're like, they're being traitors to us. Oh my God, call them names. They're Hitler. It's like, yeah, you call a black man Hitler. You're gonna get real far with that. Okay, but to that point though, you're right, and they're waking up to that. So I think that the dangling the carrot in front of the black community, saying, "Oh look, reparations, come on back." I don't think it's going to work. Because it's like, yeah, we already been down this road for the last 100+ years now, and y'all haven't given us anything. You haven't even. You always want to do a study. What the hell is this study going to consist of? Because we already know what happened, so we don't need to study this again. Type of thing. So I think that the Democrats have lost that footing and that foothold with the black community, anyways, in terms of trying to bring them back onto the proverbial plantation. No pun intended there, look, folks. But that's where we at right now. So it's interesting, but I don't think they're gonna get anywhere with that. I want to jump into the next bill here, and this one is right up, kind of like up your alley, in your domain, I would say, because you're in the tech world and all that good stuff. And this one here, ladies and gentlemen, is Senate Bill 524, and it focuses on transparency in the use of artificial intelligence by law enforcement agencies. The measure requires that any police report or official document generated with the help of AI must clearly disclose that fact and identify the technology used. Under the law, agencies must retain all AI generated drafts, maintain detailed audit trails showing who accessed or modified them, and ensure that preliminary AI drafts cannot be treated as an officer's official statement. Lawmakers say the bill aims to increase accountability as AI tools become more common in public safety operations. Now, what this tells me is, if a police officer says, I really don't know how to word this, so let me throw it into AI and generate it, make it sound better. At that point, it's now an AI generated police report, which could translate to being inadmissible in court. Your thoughts, sir?
So it's one of those things where, to me, this is a where they're kind of dipping their toe in the pool, as a government, of getting into, well, we need to regulate AI, which I do think that there does need to be certain kinds of regulations, but primarily around protecting our constitutional rights, because I think a lot of AI does violate our constitutional rights. I don't necessarily think that this is one of those, but I think it's an easy one to sell because a lot of people have distrust of the police, right? And so when you're looking at it from that perspective, to me, I don't think that you need this kind of regulation. I think all that you really need is you need to be able to say, okay, whoever signs off on it. So in this case, it would be the police officer. Whoever signs off on the report. It doesn't matter whether it was AI generated or the police officer himself wrote the police report. It just matters whether it was truthful or not. And whether it was AI generated or whether it was a police officer that wrote it. Either way, like there's a lot of times there are discrepancies, and that's why so many people can get a lot of their cases actually thrown out in court, is because, well, this was factually inaccurate, or the police officer misremembered, or fill in the blank. And so I think that, to me, I don't think that we need necessarily accountability if the police officer uses AI, because I think what it's doing is it's actually now placing or putting these, pretty much any police report under question of, okay, if let's say the police officer did use AI, because, who knows, maybe the police officer is not that great of a writer, and he's like, look, here's what happened, AI, can you clean it up for me, whatever it is. But now if it goes before a jury, now the jury will be like, well, the police officer didn't actually write it, it was AI. Well, technically the police officer probably did write it, and he just wrote out all of his recollections and he put it in AI, so that way it actually sounds better. But now you're putting that question in a jury's mind that this is illegitimate, just because a lot of people don't understand how AI actually works. So to me, this is it. It's, we do need regulation of some kind when it comes to artificial intelligence, and I've got a lot of concerns about AI. But on the flip side, I don't think that this is the kind of regulation that we need.
I agree, and to me, it's no different than utilizing it in an advanced version or advanced software of grammar check. You put there and you throw in a whole bunch of run-on sentences, mispunctuated, words, statements and everything else, and you say, okay, clean this up for me. Technically, that's AI. In a grand scheme of things, when you look at the overarching apparatus of what it does, that is artificial intelligence. It's cleaning up your work. So I'm there with you. I don't think they should be utilizing or try to leverage the power of government to regulate in that sense, because what's going to stop them to say, okay, well, now if you use AI to even write a bill, members of Congress, you can't use AI to do that, because you got to track, and show me your drafts and show me what was the intent and all this. So now we're litigating litigation, and so it's going to you're going to run down a rabbit hole, and it's going to just get stupid from there. Once again, California, I get it, but the other thing that I want to point out too with this is, if California wants to regulate AI in the space of law enforcement, then it kind of green lights the law enforcement to say, well, hell, we could use AI to recreate the crime scene. We can or make our case. We could say, hey, here's a movie, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. It's AI generated, but it's just to give you a visual of what happened. And they play this movie, and it looks so real because lately I've been on social media, and I'm seeing these clips. And good thing they have a little watermark there to let you know it's AI generated, but they look so real. And it's like, oh man, this is so scary. Like, you could literally take, regular people and make them do things that's not real. So it's like fighting a bear or, play tickling a tiger and shit. It's like, whoa, what are we doing? So police can actually effectively do the same thing. They can recreate a crime scene, make it into a movie, and say this is how, this is what the defendant did, and the jury will be convinced at that. They'll say, okay, this was a great movie that they put together. I'm convinced that he's guilty of this. Do you see something like that happening? And as long as they give the disclaimer that it was AI generated according to this bill, do you think that should fly?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where this is one of the big problems when it comes to artificial intelligence in general, is because it can be so manipulative. And I think that to me, I could see pretty legitimate legislation being introduced, and probably should be, that AI can and shouldn't be used in a court of law in this way for a variety of reasons. To me, you should be using actual documentation, actual evidence, actual investigations, not AI, manipulative, imagery or something along those lines. Because even if you're like, okay, this is full disclaimer, this is a recreation. The assumption is it's recreating the facts. And we all know that AI takes liberty. It fills in gaps where there's not information, and to where I think that it can be used. And also too, if you put it from the perspective of, here's a recreation, but then on the back end, they're doing it in order to push a particular narrative, which again, in a court of law, they will be doing. To me, now you're setting people up to be, found guilty of something that they possibly didn't do, or vice versa. And this is the problem. So again, this is where proper legislation can come into effect of safeguarding our justice system from AI, and especially how manipulative it can be. And I think, again, there's a lot of safeguards that I think that we do need to put in place to make sure that the AI is not used in a wrong fashion, because again, we have to protect constitutional rights. And one of your constitutional rights is that you are innocent until proven guilty, not manipulated into a guilty verdict.
Right. Thank you for that. And you're absolutely right. Reading this and what you just said, as you was explaining that, I thought immediately about Minority Report with Tom Cruise. Ladies and gentlemen, if you remember that movie, if you've never seen that movie, because there's some years ago now, go back and watch that movie, Minority Report with Tom Cruise, and that's exactly how they did things. That's how they ran a judicial system. It was like, you thought about this crime, so we're gonna play this movie to show you how you have committed this crime. And you like, but I ain't doing any of that yet. Like, what the, like, it was literally a dream. You sentenced me to death for a dream. Like, what the, so that's literally what this would do. Is saying like, hey, you can do this, but so precog, no, that would be a bad thing. But Jeff, I want to jump into talk about your new book here, Following the Leader. For those that have not heard the story behind this book, tell us what it's about and what was the idea behind writing it.
Yeah, definitely. So back in my book, I think it was Church and State, How the Left Used the Church to Conquer America. And again, I brought together a bunch of people that all wrote a chapter in the book. So some pastors, some theologians, some experts in different fields, and all that kind of stuff. And my chapter in that one was about the evangelical cult of personality. So how a lot of these megachurch pastors, they would basically almost set up their own cult within evangelical Christianity, to where it was set up to where this pastor is the greatest pastor of all time, and our amazing pastor, fill in the blank, you got to read his book, you got to listen to his sermons, you got to go to his conferences, and if he says something, then clearly you need to trust him. You can't question the almighty pastor so and so. And so that was the chapter I wrote about, and how easily it is for us to be theologically manipulated, and how that was actually been used in order to push the evangelical church further to the left, as opposed to actually comparing everything with Scripture. So then, over the last 5 years or so, I've really been seeing this trend really be implemented within the political sphere and the cultural sphere in secular society here in our country. And so I decided I should probably write a book about it, where in that, hence the name Following the Leader, where the idea is, are you following somebody? Are you actually following your own convictions and your own belief and your own worldview? And as I started researching this more, I started figuring out, like, well, a lot of these same tactics were used in the cults, like Scientology and Jim Jones and Charles Manson, and all these different places. Yeah. And then, as I'm doing more research, I'm like, well, why do these cult leaders have direct ties with intelligence agencies? That's a little weird, right? Like repeatedly, over and over and over again, Jim Jones, Charles Manson, fill in the blank. They've all got some kind of tie with an intelligence agency. So what's going on here? And so as you're looking at this, you're just sitting here and you're like, okay, so, and again, this is just a theory that I'm positing, but I feel like when you're looking at the documentation, you're like, yeah, this could be a legitimate case. Were these cults actually testing grounds for a lot of the mind control tactics? Because when you think about it, you look at all these cults, they all used very similar procedures, they all used very similar tactics, and what they all did this thing where they would take normal everyday people off the street, like literally Scientology. You go down on Hollywood Boulevard in Hollywood right now, they've got people out proselytizing. Hey, you want to come in for an auditing session? And they get you on this idea of you come in and personal development, self-growth, become a better person kind of a thing, right? And then they build on top of that, and then they use these cult tactics in order to get you to believe insane things. Like in Scientology, they believe that aliens are dropping into the ocean, in the Pacific Ocean, climbing up on the beach, and that's why there's so many Scientologists in Los Angeles, because they're indwelling people. And you're just sitting here like, if you were to pitch people on that off the street, they'd be like, you're crazy, don't come near me. Yeah, but because they start off on this very basic lie, they build on top of it, build on top of it, build on top of it, then all of a sudden they get you to believe insane, crazy things. Same thing with Charles Manson. You see that you're able to get normal, everyday people to eventually go out and do these mass murder, helter-skelter type campaigns, and you're just sitting there and you're like, how did they do this? And so you see this and you're like, okay, they all use the same tactics. They all have ties to intelligence agencies. And then guess what? Now we're seeing the same tactics being used on the public, both in the Democrat Party and in the Republican Party and across the board. And so the entire idea of the book is taking a look at all this documentation and then looking at your own life and figuring out, what do I believe? And not just what do I believe, but why do I believe it? Am I a sucker for some kind of cult mentality, or do I actually believe what I believe because I know that it's true? And so that's really the whole idea of the book.
Excellent, and you're absolutely right. We said those different characters of history, ties to intelligence agency. You're absolutely right. And this is where we get the COINTELPRO, MK Ultra, Operation Mockingbird, all these things that are labeled as conspiracy theories. They resonate. They resonate not only with these people, but with the general public that actually pay attention to these kind of things and these patterns, and they say, that's interesting that this is going on. So there may be some validity to this. Maybe this is not a conspiracy theory. And, they say everything's a conspiracy theory until it comes true. And it's like, well, hey, there you go. So, but yeah, thank you for that, because I know people are probably looking forward to reading this. And where can people pick up this book?
Yeah, you guys can actually get it at my publishing company. It's called gatekeepersonline.com, and you guys can actually go there. You guys can pre-order the book there. You guys can check out some of the other books that we put out there as well. We've got another book over there by Dr. Bobby Lopez called Cancel Proof Christianity, which is a phenomenal book that we'll be releasing here very soon as well. So we got some good stuff going on over there at gatekeepersonline.com.
Cool. Gatekeepers.com. Is that correct? Gatekeepers.com?
Yep.
Okay.
Gatekeepersonline.com.
Gatekeepersonline.com, ladies and gentlemen. Excuse me. Perfecto. Awesome. Jeff, please share us any thoughts that you may have. Parting thoughts.
Yeah, definitely. I think that in general, the key that I think I want everybody to really be thinking about is like, what's my worldview? Why do I believe what I believe? And then just take a look at the world from that perspective, and and be willing to entertain the idea that you could possibly be wrong, and that's okay. But believe what you believe 100% until it's proven that you're wrong, and then don't take offense that you were proven wrong. Actually, change your mind. Follow the truth wherever it leads, and that's really a huge focus of what we're trying to do with PickAx, with our social media platform, is allow for nuanced conversations, long form debates, long form conversations. Let's get into the weeds on different issues, get into the nuance of stuff, and so we're building the platform from that perspective, and then kind of giving people a voice that social media platforms and algorithms don't allow to have their voice get out there. So if you guys are interested, you guys can go to pickax.com. It's PICKAX.com. You guys can follow me there, subscribe to my email newsletter there. We're going to be rolling that feature out as well. And so definitely be checking that out.
Sweet, Jeff. Hey, thank you so much, and be safe out there, and see you again soon. Have fun.
Sounds good. I always appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell Gavin Newsom to say hello.
Yeah, if they allow me to run into him, I will.
Hey, be safe out there. I'll talk to you soon. Take it easy. God bless you. Ladies and gentlemen, Jeff Dornik, great guy. I love the conversation. Be sure to pick up his book, Following the Leader. It will be out soon. You can go to gatekeepersonline.com to pre-order that. And folks, I don't have much else to caveat on today. Whew, excuse me. That was random. But be sure to tune in later on this week. I think I got another guest. I'm working out the details. Be a treat. If it don't work out, then maybe next week or something like that. But anyway, folks, I'm about to get up out of here. I will catch you all on sometime. Be safe. God bless, and ciao. I hope you enjoyed today's program. You can follow, like, share, subscribe on Spotify, Substack, Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, and your news. And also, you can download Let the Truth Be Told app on your favorite streaming platforms, such as Fire Stick, Apple TV, and Roku. Take care. God bless.